Hello and welcome to the Mansfield Minute. So this coming week, in fact, on Friday, it is the solemn feast of the Immaculate Conception, which is a holy day of obligation. So we'll have our Vigil Mass on Thursday and then the 3 Masses on Sunday. You can check the website for the information. Listen, it's a necessity. The Immaculate Conception, Mary was conceived in the womb of her mother. She was conceived without the stain of sin. So by an act of God, God's grace at work, Mary was spared the stain of original sin. And I'll tell you why this is necessary. Because in order to free us, in order to save us, Jesus had to be perfect, not only in his divine nature, but also in his human nature, in order to provide God with the ultimate, perfect, pure, unblemished sacrifice. So Jesus is pure and perfect in his divinity by virtue of his divinity, but what about in his humanity? If Jesus had been flawed in his humanity, then how could he have offered himself up as the perfect unblemished sacrifice? Remember, Jesus is one person with two natures, human and divine. And of course, he received his human nature from the Blessed Mother. So in order to keep the stain of sin from flowing from the Blessed Mother onto Jesus, then God had to go back to that generation, to the Blessed Mother, and then she was spared the stain of original sin, and she was conceived without sin. And then when Jesus was conceived in her womb, he would be free from the stain of original sin, thus being perfected absolutely in his human nature as well as in his divine nature. Okay, now a person will argue and say, well, why wasn't it the case that, the stain of sin was just prevented at the moment of Jesus's conception, when he was conceived? Well, that means that Jesus had to save himself. And Jesus is not the savee, he is the Savior. Okay? So this is a teaching of the church. We are happy to believe it and to embrace it. So happy feast day, the solemn feast day of the Immaculate Conception.